Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is closing their eyes to pray. Their lips are barely moving. Their breathing has slowed. And inside their skull, something extraordinary is happening that they will never feel directly. Their brain is quietly shutting off the part of itself that knows where their body ends and the rest of the world begins. You have done this. Maybe today. Maybe as a child, hands folded, told to talk to someone you couldn't see. But the real answer to what's happening in that moment is far stranger than just thinking real hard. Prayer feels like a private, invisible act. Something between you and something bigger than you. No wires. No machines. Just words, spoken or silent. But scientists have actually watched it happen. They've slid people into brain scanners mid-prayer. They've measured blood flow while nuns whispered the rosary, and while monks sat in silent meditation. And what they found didn't just describe prayer. It rewired how we think about belief itself. Let's start with the moment before the words even begin. You settle into stillness. Your shoulders drop. Your breathing slows down almost on its own. This isn't just relaxation. Neuroscientist Andrew Newberg, working out of the University of Pennsylvania, spent years scanning the brains of people in deep prayer and meditation. He used a technique called SPECT imaging, which tracks blood flow to different brain regions in real time. What he found in his subjects, including Franciscan nuns deep in prayer, was a sharp drop in activity in a region called the parietal lobe. That's the part of your brain responsible for spatial orientation. It's the part that tells you where your body stops and the room starts. When that region quiets down, the boundary between you and everything else gets blurry. Newberg had a name for it. He called it Neurotheology, the neuroscience of religious experience. And his scans suggested something remarkable. The feeling many describe during deep prayer, a sense of merging with something larger, isn't just poetic language. It has a physical signature in the brain. Why would your brain do this? Think about what prayer actually asks of you. Stop tracking your body. Stop tracking the room. Direct all your attention somewhere else entirely. Your parietal lobe's job is to keep you anchored in physical space. During prayer, you're deliberately asking your mind to loosen that anchor. And your brain remarkably cooperates. But there's more happening than just quieting one region. Something else lights up. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for focus, intention, and self-control, becomes more active during prayer. This is the same region that activates when you concentrate hard on a difficult task. Your brain isn't drifting into a daze. It's doing focused, effortful work even in silence. This is one reason prayer and meditation research keeps circling back to the same finding. Harvard cardiologist Herbert Benson, who studied meditative and prayerful states for decades, described this as the relaxation response, a measurable physical state that includes slower breathing, lower blood pressure, and reduced activity in the brain's stress centers. He found this state showing up not just in Christian prayer, but in meditation, chanting, and repetitive devotional practice across cultures. The body doesn't know the difference between traditions. It only knows the pattern: stillness, repetition, focused attention, and it responds the same way every time. Here's where it gets stranger. Your amygdala, the almond-shaped structure deep in your brain that triggers fear and threat responses, quiets down during sustained prayer. This is the same region that spikes when you hear a sudden loud noise, or when you're anxious before a meeting, or when you lie awake at night running through everything that could go wrong. Prayer turns its volume down, not by distracting you, by directing your attention somewhere your amygdala doesn't recognize as dangerous. Somewhere it can finally rest. Think about what that means. For thousands of years, before anyone had a word for neurons or brain scans, people were doing something that measurably calmed the oldest, most primal fear system in the human brain. They didn't know the mechanism. They just knew it worked. Isn't that worth sitting with for a moment? Your ancestors prayed before hunts, before childbirth, before battles, before storms. They didn't have anti-anxiety medication. They didn't have therapy. What they had was ritual. Words repeated, postures held, attention narrowed to a single point outside themselves. And it turns out that ritual was doing real neurological work, whether or not they understood a single thing about the parietal lobe. Now here's the twist. Some researchers wanted to know if this effect was unique to religious prayer specifically, or if it was really about the structure of the practice itself. Studies comparing prayer to secular meditation found strikingly similar brain patterns. focused breathing, repeated phrases, a quiet mantra. All of it produces overlapping effects: reduced parietal activity, calmed amygdala, engaged prefrontal focus. This doesn't mean prayer is just meditation with a different label. It means the human brain seems to have built-in machinery for this kind of surrender, this deliberate quieting of self-location and fear, regardless of what name you give the practice. Your brain was built for this, long before anyone wrote a psalm. There's a practical side to all of this too, one that shows up outside of church pews and prayer mats. Doctors have started paying attention. Patients who engage in regular prayer or meditative practice often show measurably lower cortisol levels, the hormone your body releases under chronic stress. Lower cortisol over time is linked to better sleep, steadier blood pressure, and a calmer immune system. This isn't a promise that prayer cures illness. It's something narrower, and in some ways more interesting. The simple act of quieting your fear circuitry, on a regular basis, appears to leave a physical trace on your body over months and years. Your grandmother's insistence on saying grace before dinner, the evening prayers your family may have said before bed. These weren't just traditions passed down out of habit. They were, without anyone realizing it, small doses of nervous system regulation, repeated for a lifetime. Think about what that reframes. You've probably heard prayer described as passive. Something you do when you've run out of options. Something for people who can't fix their own problems. But the neuroscience tells a different story. Prayer is active. It takes real, sustained effort from your prefrontal cortex to hold attention on something you cannot see, cannot touch, cannot prove is listening. That's not the brain of someone giving up. That's the brain of someone working to quiet a fear system that evolution built to never fully rest. Working to loosen a boundary the brain spends every waking moment reinforcing. Isn't it strange that the thing so often mistaken for surrender is, neurologically speaking, one of the harder things your mind can choose to do? There's a detail in Newberg's research that rarely gets mentioned. When he scanned Tibetan Buddhist monks in meditation, and compared them to Franciscan nuns in prayer, the two groups came from entirely different theological worlds. Different languages, different scriptures, different understanding of what or who they were speaking to, but their brain scans looked remarkably alike. The parietal quieting, the prefrontal focus, the calmed fear response. Two traditions, separated by geography and doctrine, converging on the same neural pattern. What does it mean that the human brain responds this way almost universally? Maybe it means this capacity isn't something religion invented. Maybe religion discovered something that was already sitting inside the architecture of the human mind, waiting to be used. Consider what you're actually doing every single time you pray. You're not just speaking words into silence. You're triggering a cascade. Your sense of physical boundary softens. Your fear center quiets. Your focus sharpens on something beyond yourself. All of that happening beneath your awareness every time you bow your head. This is why prayer so often leaves people feeling different afterward, even when nothing around them has changed. The bills are still due. The diagnosis is still real. The argument from last night still happened. But something in the nervous system has shifted. The threat response has dimmed. The boundaries have loosened. For a few minutes, the part of the brain constantly asking, "Where am I? And am I safe?" got permission to stand down. Some scientists push this even further. Michael Persinger, a neuroscientist known for his controversial God helmet experiments, tried stimulating the temporal lobes directly to see if he could artificially produce sensations people describe during prayer: a felt presence, a sense of something watching. His results were mixed and heavily debated, and many researchers have since questioned how reliably the effect could be reproduced. But the fact that scientists were even trying tells you something. The feelings people report during prayer are specific enough, consistent enough, that researchers believe they might be able to trace them to a physical location in the brain. None of this explains away what prayer means to you. A brain scan can't tell you whether anyone is listening on the other end. That question sits outside what any machine can measure. But the scans do tell you this: whatever is happening when you pray is not nothing. It is not simply words dissolving into empty air. Something ancient and precise is activating inside you. The same circuitry your ancestors activated around fires, in temples, on their knees in fields before the harvest. Think about the people around you who pray without ever knowing any of this. The person at the hospital bedside, whispering over a family member. The child taught to fold their hands before a meal. The grandmother who has said the same words every night for 60 years. None of them needed a SPECT scanner to know something real was happening. They felt it in the loosening of their shoulders, the slowing of their breath, the quiet that settled in afterward. Science simply caught up to what practice had already proven generation after generation, without ever needing a name for the parietal lobe. You inherited a nervous system built in part for this. For stillness. For surrender. For quieting the parts of the brain that keep score of danger and boundary so that something else in you can come forward. Call it faith. Call it focus. Call it the oldest technology the human mind ever built for itself. So tonight, when you close your eyes and speak, or stay silent and simply listen, notice what happens in the seconds after you begin. The dropping of the shoulders. The slowing of breath. The quiet loosening of the edges of yourself. That isn't nothing. It never was. It's your brain doing what it was built to do, the same thing it has done for every person who ever knelt before you, reaching for something beyond the walls of their own skin.